shows every Sunday.
Random Ramblings with Rob.
Here we go.
What up, everybody? This your boy B-Rob, and I'm back with another edition of the Random Ramblings with Rob podcast. First and foremost, I'd like to thank you, the listener, for coming back each and every week, or however you listen to podcasts. And if you're a first-time listener, I'd like to thank you oh so much for giving my show a try. And if anybody recommended you to me, I would like for you to reach over and give that person a crisp high five. But if you don't want to be slapping flesh with the compadre that recommended you to me, it's okay. It's cool. You can go to your favorite social media app of choice and you can send that person a well-crafted DM telling them thank you for recommending you to me. Speaking of social media, you can find the Random Rambles with Rob on various social media platforms to include Twitter at 3R Show, Instagram at The 3R Show. You can see video interviews that I've done on YouTube by searching 3R Show. And for anything that I may have forgotten to mention, you can go to randomrob.com. randomrob.com, to where you can find many different ways to help support the show and our sponsor, Hooks, Rubs, and Spices. Go to hooksrub.com and you can get 15% off your order if you use promo code random. Go to hooksrub.com. You get 15% off your goddamn order if you use promo code random. Get that lovely array of herbs and spices and rubs in your life. God damn it. Ooh, yay. Out a little later than I wanted to, but still keeping within the weekly guise of releasing the episode. Been super hella busy at my day job, my work job, outside of podcasting and things, you know, the real life adult shit. So, I came home yesterday, ample amount of time to record and produce an episode for Sunday, but I was like, fuck that couch. I came home, washed my hands and put my bags away first. But I came home, went in the kitchen, made food. Well, I didn't physically, I didn't cook the food. My wife made the food, but I made a plate and I ate, and then I washed myself ever so vigorously in a back and forth motion. And I got into bed. And mind you, I got off of work at probably like 7. I got home about 7 o'clock at night. And I did all that and I got into bed. And I started playing my motherfucking PS Vita. So I just laid in the bed because Mrs. B. Rob was upstairs in the movie room watching Denzel Washington film Man on Fire. And for those of you who've been listening to this show a while, know I got beef with motherfucking Denzel because of a episode that we recorded, which is rapidly approaching here pretty soon. Once again, the real annual event of the Random Rounds with Rob, Ask Miss B. Rob. So a question was posed or whatever, like, would you kiss this person? I forget what even the question was, but her answer was Denzel Washington. And I was like, fuck him ever since. So she was up there watching freaking Man on Fire, a tremendous film. And I just laid downstairs in the bed playing the goddamn PS Vita that I have recently acquired in my handheld journeys, quests, I would say. So I've just been, modernizing this thing because here we are in 2023 playing on a handheld console that was released in 2011. And I'm not going to lie, other than some of the hand placement, because this handheld has 2 Joy-Cons and everything is similar to that of a PlayStation controller. This thing still holds up. It's pretty good. I'm not going to lie. I mean, if you would have launched this thing with obviously some minor upgrades to the physical aesthetic of it. So like, maybe pulling the thumbsticks out a little further, maybe widening the whole console. And I think this thing would be primed and ready and cool for something to have in 2023. I mean, I'm playing PlayStation 1 games on there, which, by today's standards isn't really that hard. I'm playing some Nintendo 64 games. Those are just hard to emulate, cause, of things. And, the Vita games look great. I'm just going back and revisiting some of the things that I've enjoyed in my past. And, it's great for those other, the lesser powered handheld games. So like Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advanced, and things like that. You can get some of those Neo Geo handheld joints and all those other weird ass shits. But, for what it is here in 2023, the Vita is pretty damn great. So there you go. Get you some of that ambiance. Get you some of that. That menu music is soothing, I was laying up in the bed just kind of going through some settings and everything, and just the lights were down low, and I just had this calm, soothing, melodic tones just bustling through my ears. Yeah, but as you do, I went through, and some of the games that I downloaded were all the old crappy professional wrestling games that they have a PS1. So it was like WCW versus the World, WCW Mayhem, WCW NWO Thunder, WCW Nitro. One, because I wanted to see how, the Vita handheld could withstand all these things. And one, because I guess I wanted to punish myself. I also downloaded some PlayStation 1 games. And it's kind of tricky to play these because if they did have buttons that were mapped to the rear, left and right triggers or whatever, the PlayStation Vita had a rear touchpad. So those buttons get mapped to that, and then you're holding it, and then your fingers are touching it. So it's just like a weird thing. But some of these PlayStation 1 games, you can get through it without even having to use those rear buttons a lot of the times or whatever. I haven't even been through too many of the button guides and everything to figure out what I'm actually missing. But for PlayStation 1, I got like Legend of Legaia, Final Fantasy Tactics, another game that I don't want to get just to punish myself. Wu-Tang, Shaolin Style, that fighting game that came out that kind of inspired and launched, like Def Jam Vendetta and freaking Def Jam Fight for New York and all this stuff is within that similar style. And then I got like Parappa the Rapper, which I'm horrible at on here, I guess. I don't know if it's like a button mapping issue. WWE All-Stars I got for the PSP, because you can play PSP games on the PS Vita flawlessly for the most part and everything. I got the Metal Gear collection, so I got Metal Gear 1, 2, and 3. Chrono Trigger I just downloaded because of my co-host over on RBR Weekly Wrestling Talk, Pro Wrestling Noah, who is also Pro Video Game Noah. He started playing it most recently on Steam. So he was talking about it, and I was like, that was a game that I seen people play when I was younger, but I never really got my hands on it myself. So I just downloaded it for shits and giggles. And a Street Fighter game that I enjoyed as a young man that was not available in the States, which kind of confused me because I never, as a young child, been outside of the United States of America to play this game. It's called Street Fighter XC Plus Alpha. So I remember vividly me and my nephew playing this game on PlayStation 1 at my house or his house, one of the combination of the two. And this was like the first 3D Street Fighter game that they made. 3D characters almost looked like Virtual Fighter characters and shit. There was that type of 3D. And the environment was 3D, and you can move around and traverse and shit. So I wanted to play this shit. So I downloaded that, and a lot of people who are in the know about these games say they're shitty. And I can see why they have that criticism. But yeah, it's all good. And one of my favorite WWE games I've downloaded is WWE All-Stars. I love that game to no end. I wish they would modernize it and update it. They tried to do that with Battlefield or Battleground, whatever that game is, and it was the shittiest thing ever. And then I got some Nintendo 64 games on there, which is kind of hard to reproduce that on the Vita handheld here, but it's just a few games on here that I do have, like Zelda Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, Mario Kart 64, Super Mario 64, Earthworm Jim, Cruising World, because the Cruising franchise is another one of my favorite racing games on here. And of course, for the PSP, I got motherfucking Midnight Club 3 Dub Edition. That game, I had to have that on every console, handheld or other, because that shit is awesome. And, I got the sequels to Final Fantasy Tactics. But one of the things that I wanted to play, that I wanted to get into my hands, was a lot of the Game Boy games and everything. So, I have actual, Game Boy Advance. I'm looking at them right now. They're sitting on my desk. I have a Game Boy Advance that I tricked out with a, color screen, better than what they originally came in. I got a Game Boy Advance, a Game Boy Pocket, freaking original OG Game Boy, Game Boy Advance SP. We got every Game Boy handheld in this house except the Game Boy Light, which came out, I think, after the Pocket, which is the same size, but this one actually had their first iteration of a handheld console with a light in it, hence the name Light. And we don't have that one, and we don't have, I think, the last Game Boy handheld that they made was the Game Boy Micro. So we don't have those two. One, because the Game Boy Light was only released in Japan. So that's another thing. I'm looking at it on eBay. It's kind of pricey, and you can get one for cheap, but the ones that are cheaper are the ones that don't have the light functionality. It doesn't work. So I want a working one. So I'm willing to pay a little bit more later when I have the time to, or the funds to get one of those to add to the collection. And then the Game Boy Micro on the other end, it's kind of more expensive because they didn't sell all that well. And that tends to be the thing with, collectors. The thing that sells crappy, they don't produce a lot of the times, or they overproduce it and then they discontinue it, and then it's still hard to find. So they go up in price because they were so sought after, because there's not many of them, or there's too many of them and people just hoarding them shits and selling them for stupid prices. But this is good with the Vita because I can put all these things instead of, all right, I want to play this game that's only on the Game Boy Advance. So now I got to lug the Advance around. Oh, I can only play this because this is on, Game Boy, or this is only on DS and all this stuff. Well, I don't have to worry about that anymore because it all fits in the motherfucking Vita. So I had to get the game that I've been questing for, and I think I talked about it on here. Golden Sun is one of the games that left the most lasting memory from when the Game Boy Advance was actually in circulation. And it was one of the games that I put many hours into and I enjoyed, but I never finished. And then, I move on with my life, and I wiped it from my memory. I forgot about it because it wasn't in front of me. And then, young child got into all these nostalgic consoles and handhelds and everything. And it started to bring all the memories back and whatnot. So I'm not going to lie, I'm kind of cheap when it comes to this stuff. So what led me to going down a spiral of getting all these handhelds, because I figure out that a lot of them, more of the older ones, because they had less advanced setups and, manufacturing processes, were easy to fix. So I've been buying them hella cheap and fixing them and giving them to young child for testing and rigorous, mayhem and onslaught that she puts upon them. So I've been fixing them for cheap and putting them in the collection. And then oh, I want to play this game again. Oh, I want to play this game again. All those memories started coming back. So the Golden Sun came around once we got a hold to a Game Boy Advance. And I was going to buy this game. so I could play it. And then I was looking at these prices and I was like, nah, that's too much. I want to play it, but I want to play it that bad. And then I figured out that there was a such thing as a repro. So what people had been doing was, since the games were harder to find, as a way to get them and play them cheaper, somebody would recreate the game. They would make their own cartridges of these classics. A lot of this gets done with Pokemon games, from what I understand. So there's a lot of fake and real cartridges floating out there. So I couldn't tell which was which. And then I took a chance because there was a seller on Etsy that straight up like, hey, this is a repro, $20. I was like, all right, I'm willing to shell out $20 for that. So went in, got the repro, worked flawless on the Game Boy Advance till it didn't. So the first initial issue I had was I thought it might have been the handheld itself, the Game Boy that I refurbed and brought back to life. So I played other games that had a save functionality and everything, and none of them gave me issues. None of them gave me problems. But with this one, I think I got past the initial screen, because every time that you start fresh in Golden Sun, the first thing that pops up outside of the people who produced it and all that stuff is your character name select. So you start the game up, you pick the character's name, and then it goes immediately into the story of the game. So I started, named my character B-Rob, as I do. Went through, the whole initial introducing of this game, or whatever, got through there, did my first save point. And then I turned it off, went do adult things like work and other things. Came back to it to play some more. Had to start all over. Wonder what the fuck happened. So this time around, got a little bit further, got deep into the game, establish a couple save points. I'm deep in here. All the memories are flooding back in. I've leveled up characters. I've acquired other summoning characters and everything, because it's that type of RPG. Saved it, put it down, come back a couple days later. It's all gone. Had to start all the fuck over. I was like, no, but it was cool because the person who sold it to me was like, hey man, these things happen. I'm sorry for the inconvenience. You send it back to me and I'll give you a refund. No harm, no foul. But whenever we got to getting into collecting of the PSPs and everything, I remembered when the PSP was in circulation, and even when they was doing the transition into the PS Vita, that at that time there was a heavy modding scene. And I remember that because I downloaded all kinds of things and stuff at that time. And I don't even really recall why I got rid of my PSP. Because, it was good for what it was, but I don't know. It's always the tale of me and consoles and handhelds anyway. Anytime the new thing comes out, I wind up selling the old thing to get the new thing. I never really hung on to these things because I felt like, I never would get any use out of the old thing. I wouldn't go back to it since I had the new thing. And lo and behold, here we are many years later, and I got a house full of old shit. I got an original Xbox that I had when it originally came out. I got a PlayStation 2 here. It's not the original, but I still had an iteration of the small itty bitty slim one that I can remember that I had in my car. I had a television in my car because I'm extremely Southern from Louisiana. And my first car that I actually paid for with my money that, I got it painted. I put some blades on that bitch, and I put a freaking 15-inch or a 10-inch screen in the roof, falling down in my bitch so I could play. I had a TV in the freaking mirror, which at the time it wasn't as prevalent as it is now. So I could play PlayStation 2 games on my rearview mirror in the front seat, and the people in the back seat can play on the 10-inch screen that I had hanging from the ceiling. And yeah, I was very southern with my shit. You know, I had put blades on the ride, and I had TVs falling from the ceiling, and I had a PlayStation 2, and I had this little bitty tiny one in the back seat. So I've had one of these before. I've had every Nintendo handheld other than the DS stuff, because I never really got into that they released. So it's just like, to go back now and buy all these things again, relatively cheaper than what they originally launched for. I mean, it's weird to me. And it's just like almost it's a collector thing or whatever. And it's just, I don't know. Young child was interested, and I was going out of my way, because she's a good kid, to make these things happen. I didn't understand it at first. I criticized her for it, but you know, I came around, you know, because, you know, she gave me some explanation why she wanted to get into these old things and whatnot. She's like, wanted to establish a connection with you, see how you felt when you played it when you were a child, and all kinds of stuff like that. So I don't know, made me feel funny in my heartstrings and shit. But yeah, so I got Golden Sun on here for Game Boy Advance. I got Golden Sun 2, which I've never played, but I won't play until I finish Golden Sun 1. I got Final Fantasy Tactics, which was a game that I always wanted to play when it was in circulation or whatever, but I never really got around to doing it for Advanced or PlayStation. So I got both of those. And then I got like some stuff I wanted to get into that I found out about, like Pokemon. Never played a Pokemon game in my life. Never had the urge to, never had the desire to. But recently, on a tier maker that we did for the Patreon on RBR, we got into ranking Pokemon starters. So it's the Pokemon that you initially start out with when you go on your Pokemon journeys, I suppose, because I know nothing about the game. And one or two of them caught my eye. I was like, oh, that's an interesting character. I like what they evolve into and stuff like that, which got me kind of like, what have I been missing by not playing one of these 1 millionth goddamn Pokemon games they got out? They got Fire, Moon, Sun, Emerald, Crystal, all these other crazy ass games, you know, just to, you know, sell. But, you know, they create new Pokemon, they create a new game. And it extends your market, I guess, capitalism. And got to looking into some ROMs for it. But what caught my eye, really, because a lot of the Pokemons that I was interested in, that I learned about, they're not all throughout all the games. So I had to have a particular game to download so I can play with that particular Pokemon. It's a lot of goddamn Pokemon games, and all these characters that I like are spread out through different games, and one is not in this game and one is not in this game, and so on and so forth. So get on YouTube, and there's a whole mod community for Pokemon games, to where they more or less put all the Pokemon in there, and they create their own unique storylines with these games. So I'm trying to find one of these, a safe one, that I can play, so I can play with all the Pokemon and just relive or live a freaking original story that is kind of separate from the, you know, what's been released. So I'm interested in that. I think one of the ones that they said was really good was Pokemon Unbound and everything. And then there is a mashup of Sun and Moon that's out there. So I'm trying to figure all this stuff out. New Frontier, mods, and freaking, I don't know. It's a whole bunch of shit. But anyway, that's pretty much what's going on. Young Child is brought me back into the handheld gaming fold, and just like the collector of things within me, or hoarder, however you want to look at it. it's just been reignited and just engaged in all this handheld stupid shit. So I got 2 PS Vitas now. I got a black one and I got a white one. The white one is a Japanese version, which I gave that to Young Child, and I'm just waiting on the memory card to come in so I can install all the things and stuff. And yeah. So like I said, so if you're out there listening, if you can find it for the Lolo, or if you got one that you don't need or that's broken and you want to send it to me to try to fix it and revive it, I need a Nintendo Game Boy Micro and a Nintendo Game Boy Light. I'm also trying to find a PSP Go. And I think that'll round all that out. Then after that, I have to see what consoles I'm missing for the DS iteration of the Nintendo handhelds. So after that, that'll be it. Because I'm not getting into all that other stupid, that Neo Geo, Linux, and all this other bullshit. Because that shit looks whack. But I don't know. Young Child better not utter it. Then it'll be stuck in my brain, and I'll be out here in the weeds looking for the things. But yeah. Anyway, that's been about enough of this shit. If you want to look into the world of professional wrestling, you can hear me live Wednesday nights on RBR Weekly Wrestling Talk, which you can find us on twitch.tv/RBR Wrestling. And you can find the boys of RBR on all socials by searching at RBR Wrestling on whatever social platform that takes that input. And yeah, that'll be it. I've been B-Rob, and this has been your Handheld Game Talk, and I'll see you next time.